Muted.
All right, awesome. All right, are you ready to go ahead and get started?
Sure.
Okay. All right, the first item on our list is if you do not have a moving, wired, kit-apart chassis, you're probably not going to have a good day. No, just kidding. You really need to get moving on this. This needs to be an absolute thing. It needs to be moving, which means all of your motors need to be together. It needs to be a legal dimension for driving, and it needs to be programmed at this point. I stuck a link in the notes for you guys. If you are having trouble with deploying default code, there is a link in there that is what we, Team 2337, use at our workshop to help teams get their chassis moving. So, Clint, I don't know if you want to touch on this. I'm trying to get the notes to cooperate with me right here.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you know, the first time getting the chassis moving, I think we might have said it before, it's kind of a culmination, if you will, and gets everyone excited to know that there's hope, you know, still at the end of the tunnel, that you guys will be able to complete it, so it helps rally the troops and everything. But if you need help and assistance of getting the stuff operational, there is help out there. So don't be afraid to reach out to either us on these rookie calls or even online through some of the tutorials. Like I said, you should be able to have it moving. Don't know if anyone has any questions currently right now about that. I guess not. So I don't know what's next on the agenda because I'm driving. So.
Sorry, I just got back in. I'm trying to get set up here, Clint. Give me 1 minute.
Nope,
sure.
You're good. Sorry, I was pulling pizza out of the oven. All right, the next thing is that you should be moving toward production versions of your game piece manipulators, whether you are going over the defenses or manipulating boulders. Go ahead.
The point I'll iterate here, and I think I've done it every single weekend, being able to manipulate the boulders and move it from one zone to another is extremely valuable. It's very common for teams to look at the high goal and shoot and worry about shooting, but if you can't move and you can't move the balls upfield, your ability to shoot is irrelevant. Also, when you guys are, you know, working on these and you might make changes, you know, to your chassis or to your mechanisms, you know, if you have some of the other practice elements of your team built it, make sure you go back through, especially with this game, and test how your robot now reacts. You know, you might make a change because this, you know, your chassis was getting hung up on the moat, and once you make that change, it goes over the moat very well, but you might have forgot to, you know, check it on the rock wall or the ramp parts or something like that. At this stage, it starts to get to the point where you want to have iterations over and over again to keep making it better and better and better, and look for failure points, because if it fails in your shop, it'll definitely fail on the field, you know, during a match or, you know, during the competition through the season. So.
And to add to what Clint is saying, one thing that you want to make sure that you're doing at this point is putting your robot in realistic situations, not in ideal situations. So if you're testing your robot, say on the rough terrain, and it gets stuck every single time, having one of your mentors reach over and give it a little wiggle so that it won't be stuck anymore is not putting your robot in a realistic situation. You're going to want to actually work on making it so that you have to have no human interaction aside from them operating the controls for your robot to operate.
And another good example of that is when you're trying to acquire this game piece, you have to realize there might be times that your robot is 27 to 35 feet away from you with two outer works in between you and the ball, and you're looking through a glass plate and you can't hear anything, and the students can't see anything, and they have to try to acquire or grab one of the game pieces. So, you know, just as a little like test, you could always, you know, measure out in your school or in your room, 20 feet away, put a couple cardboard boxes down on the ground to simulate the defenses of getting in the way, and then tell your team, okay, grab the boulder now when you have limited line of sight to the game pieces.
Awesome, thanks. And what Clinton is also talking about, there are places that you can go to practice with your robot. One of those places is Kettering University. I'm going to put an email address in the notes for you guys of Bob Nichols that you can email him to see if the Kettering First Center is open. This is in Flint. It is very advantageous for you to try to get on a real field or at least part of a real field, especially if you have not built any of these defenses. It's very important. If you are not in the Flint area, I'm working on getting information. I spoke with Gail Alpert, and she said that there's a field in Livonia, so I'm working on getting contact information for that, and she said there's also one in Grand Rapids. So I'm working on getting the contact information for you guys so you can try to get to a real field. The next thing I want to go into is getting started on building your bumpers. Clint?
So the bumpers, basically, I don't know how many rules there really are. There are a lot of rules talking about bumpers. What height they have to be relative to the ground. So they need to be between 4 inches off the ground and 12 inches off the ground, somewhere within that zone. A bumper has a specific design to it that's laid out. It's basically two pool noodles on a piece of plywood wrapped in the bumper fabric that's actually available in your kit of parts if you're a rookie, which everyone on this phone call should be. And then the other things that you really need to look out for is the bumper zone has to mount to your frame perimeter. Your frame perimeter, we've talked about this before, is measured as if you were to take a rope and wrap it around, the area between 4 and 12 where your bumper is attached. If you wrap a string around there and then measure that area. So if you have, let's just say a U-shaped robot, so you have an opening in the front, the frame perimeter would actually span across the U shape. It doesn't go inside of there, so you don't need bumpers to the inside. FRC does a really good job in the rules, in the manual, showing you what's okay and what's not okay. The biggest thing that most people overlook, to be honest, is you must have 8 inches of bumpers from each corner, right? Some people misinterpret that, and they think that you need only 8 inches per side. So they're like, well, I'll put 4 inches on this side and 4 inches on that side, and I have 8 inches. Well, you actually need 8 inches on the right side and 8 inches on the left side because you need 8 inches from each corner. So that plays into the dynamic of if you're having some kind of intake device and you're trying to intake a ball that is 10 inches in diameter and you need 8 inches on each side, and if your robot is only 24 inches wide, something's got to give, and the bumpers can't give because there are rules, and you will not pass inspection until you have that. And we can link where the rules start so you guys know where to look in the rules.
Clint, are you at Premiere yet?
Yes, I am. I just got here.
Is Sean there with you? Or Jason, can
no,
you cover
Sean
programming?
No.
Aren't you a programming guy?
Sean won't be here till about probably 15, 20 minutes. So.
Okay. Jason, aren't you a programming guy? Programming. I don't know anything about programming. Clint, you can.
I can help.
Basically, we just need to talk a little bit about what you do after you've deployed default code. Where do you go from there?
So again, once you've deployed your default code, right, and you get your robot up and running, then you need to start looking at your different mechanisms that you're going to add and basically start defining what's going to control those mechanisms is usually the first thing to look at. So if you're using a speed controller, you can address that speed controller. If you're using pneumatics, you'll be triggering your solenoid via the pneumatic control module. And then once you figure out how to get it to move, then you can add in things like sensors and program in sensors to trigger that motion at certain time periods or get data back from the device that's moving.
So a lot of the stuff we're talking about might be flying over people's heads. We're talking about voltage regulator modules and pneumatic solenoid modules and all this stuff. The best thing, honestly, is to take the default code that you deployed on your robot, open it up, start looking at how it takes the joystick inputs that are on your Xbox controller, Logitech controller, whatever one came in the kits, how that input is being input into the robot, and then how there's an output going to the motors, and looking at that structure. So if you want to make a wheel intake to intake the ball, you can actually look, okay, they have this joystick control this motor that's plugged into this port. Well, we can copy that whole bit of code, move it down to another segment, change a couple of the port numbers, change a couple of the things, the variables, and then get it operational so then it works. It's not the best. It's not, you know, you don't have the sensors and all this other fancy stuff, but at least you can start getting, moving forward to add additional mechanisms and components. As you get more comfortable with the programming language, you can then start stretching out and doing additional stuff. And there are some tutorials out there that you can ask or try to get a hold of other teams to kind of get some input of how to use certain things. But looking at that default code is a great opportunity because they have a lot of the stuff in there already built into it. So you can kind of look and then copy, paste, change a couple numbers, and you're good.
Clint, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay. Is the default code, I haven't looked at it yet, is it called the default code? Is it easy to find in there, in the computer?
Yeah, so when you load LabVIEW, I think that the tutorial has you load LabVIEW, and then you have the FRC kind of interface where it'll say like create your first robot or create default code, and as you go through those processes of deploying that default code, you're opening it. But when they have you walk through how to deploy that default code, they might not actually physically open up to see all of where the code is. They'll just teach you how to deploy it. So it's a matter of just seeing where the code is, and it'll be like main.vi, and open that main.vi. Okay. I don't know if it actually is called main.vi, once again, because we have other people that do that. But you just double click on it, and it should bring a window up showing you the code inside of there. And just kind of, it's kind of like an Internet Explorer, or not Internet Explorer, Windows Explorer, where you can, you have different folders to go into and kind of see the different files for Auton and the main and teleop and that kind of stuff, okay?
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Right, does anyone else have any other questions about programming or bumpers or kind of just robot in general before we kind of move into other stuff?
We had a question about setting up the driver dashboard, and can you can you modify the existing dashboard, and if so, kind of where to start?
Yes, you can modify the existing dashboard. It's a LabVIEW file, so you can modify it just like you can your regular. I'm looking for a couple things. I'll put a couple links into the notes about that.
Yeah. So in LabVIEW, you have two different panels. You have the front panel and the back panel. The back panel is where all your code is, where you have the different, we'll say, puzzle pieces and wires connecting everything. And the front panel is kind of where you can put, text boxes, labels, indicators, that kind of stuff on that interface. And there's a way to actually go in and modify the default section to give you additional input or feedback or variables and that kind of stuff. There are ways to do it. I think it's a little bit, it's not to say anyone can't do it, but I definitely, just a caution, because it is above and beyond of what you need. You don't need to do that to do a robot, but it can make your robot better.
Okay, because our programming mentor was wondering about, is there a way to do that?
Yep, there absolutely is a way to do it. Hopefully we can provide a couple links and some tutorials of how to do that. You know, it's probably also limited on your imagination too, you know. Some people get all fancy and put, you know, a giant, you know, camera view of what their robot sees, and they put these little lines and, you know, different color boxes indicating the robots at different states. But once again, you don't have to do that to have a functional robot, but it can improve your effectiveness on the field.
Okay, thank you.
So are there any other
questions?
I have a question about bumpers. It says they must be the same with diameter, cross, and density. Does that mean the density of my bumpers is the density of everybody else's bumpers?
So I think the question was about the density of bumpers.
Yes.
Like you were kind of breaking up there.
Does everybody, do all the robots have to have this density of bumpers? What should it be?
I guess when you say density of the bumpers, are you talking the weight of the bumpers, or actually the density of the foam pool noodles in the bumpers?
The density of the foam pool noodles.
I
mean, the ones that we got in the kit of parts are different than the ones I ordered because we needed more.
Yeah. So any pool noodle will be fine as long as it's about 2.5 inches in diameter. So you can have the pretty flower ones, you can have the solid core, you can have the core with a hole in the center of it. You can have all the different kinds of bumpers, pool noodles, to use on your bumpers. There's no specification this year saying it has to be one or the other. Most times, like I said, the bumpers help you to make sure that your robot isn't going to take too much damage. They really are there to protect your robot. But there is a weight limit. You cannot, I'm pretty sure it's 20 pounds. You cannot have your bumpers weigh more than 20 pounds. And you actually weigh them in separately than your robot. So your robot can weigh 120, and your bumpers can weigh another 20, and your battery, which also isn't weighed, can be about 13 to 14 pounds. So that's why you're looking at a robot that in the end will weigh about 154 pounds total.
Okay.
I know this might seem like a stupid question, but when they say the overall perimeter of the robot, that does not include the bumpers, right?
Correct. Yep, it's your frame perimeter without bumpers.
Yes, your bumpers attach to your frame perimeter.
Thank you.
All right, other questions about bumpers? I know once you guys start building your bumpers, you are probably going to have 1,000 questions because you think it's really simple to like strap some pool noodles to some plywood and attach it to your robot, but FRC makes it a lot more complicated than it really needs to be. So if you guys start building your bumpers and you guys have questions, feel free to send us an email and we'll try to walk you through it. If you really need help, I'm sure that you can drive up to Grand Blanc and we have some mentors who will help you build your bumpers. So just let us know.
The other thing to note is that bumpers are probably, in my opinion, the #1 reason why people don't pass and don't follow through inspection is because of their bumpers not being in the correct tolerances and in the correct locations, the correct size, and everything else like that. So make sure your bumpers are good. The zone is 4 to 12 inches. There's nothing wrong with saying, you know, on your team, we're going to make it we're going to make our bumper zone somewhere between 4.5 and 11.5 inches. That way it gives you a little bit of a half inch of the slop on the top or the bottom to make sure you pass through inspection. Just like with the frame primer, you don't want to be 120. You want to be 119.5 at the most.
Okay, I have one more question about the bumpers. If you have an intake that is going over the edge of your frame perimeter, do you have to have the bumper go under that, or can the bumper stop as long as it's 8 inches on both sides? You know what I'm saying?
Sorry. I don't know if I followed your description. So do you have an opening between your frame perimeter?
No, like a solid rectangle frame, but then the intake is going to come down over the edge. Does the bumper have to be able to fit under that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so if the intake is going to start up, and then when it tilts down to get the boulders, so the bumper has to be fit under there too?
Yeah. So normally that description that it sounds like you're describing is you're trying to make a over the bumper intake. So you actually, you know, a lot of teams what they'll do is they'll actually put their bumper all the way across. They won't just do it on 8 inches on each side. They'll actually span it all the way across the robot. Once again, the bumpers are helping you protect your robot and make sure it doesn't take damage. So they'll put the bumpers all the way across, and they'll make their intake go out over and around the bumpers. Now, the only caveat on this, when you start the match, you have to make sure that your intake is within the frame perimeter and not hanging over that bumper, right? It's got to make sure you're within the frame perimeter, and then once the match starts, then you can extend out past your bumpers, around it, down, whatever, grab a ball, and then lift it up again or do whatever you need to do.
Okay. But you also have to make sure that intake doesn't go beyond that 15 inches outside your bumper.
Yes. Yep.
Outside the bumper or outside the frame perimeter?
No, frame perimeter.
Frame perimeter. Sorry.
So that's okay. So you have a 3-inch. A bumper is 3 inches once you have the plywood and the pool noodle. So you kind of have this little bit of you're down to 12 past the bumper. So it's a weird dynamic that you have to consider, that you have this, like, I don't know, a dead zone.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Awesome. The next thing we're going to talk about is we had a question come in through the emails that asked us if we could talk more about the pit area at competition. So this is probably a good thing for us to start talking about kind of earlier on so that you guys have enough time to kind of gather your resources for competition. So the first question was, when and how do we load in? Load in takes place on Thursday. We've had a lot of people ask if it's important that they be there on Thursday since there's no matches on Thursday. And teams do this one of a couple different ways. A lot of teams bring their whole team on Thursday because sometimes you're staying overnight or sometimes it's just easier to have everyone come. So you bring all your stuff on Thursday and you're going to load in. This will give you, when you get to competition, each team will be given a pit. How the pits are organized is different based on each event. Most events arrange them numerically so that the lowest team number is first, then they start ascending all the way up to the highest team number. You will be given a maximum of a 10-foot by 10-foot area, but depending on the venue, it could be as small as 8-foot by 8-foot. This is where you will store all of your tools, all of your materials, your robot, everything. The only things that are supplied by the event is a table. Usually it's either a 6-foot or 8-foot table, depending on the event, and power. That's all they give you in your pit. You will be responsible for bringing your own tools. Basically anything that you would need to work on your robot. So whatever it is that you're using at your shop to build your robot and work on your robot is what you should bring. You may want to consider bringing extra of some things, like more than one wrench or more than one, I don't know, what else you'd use, a hammer. Clint, you're probably going to be way better at talking about this than me since you're the pit guy. So feel free to chime in anytime.
Yeah, I mean, you want to make sure that you can fix your robot. There might be times where in between matches you have very little time to fix your robot, and you might need to fix two different areas. Someone needs to be working on, you know, your intake, and then someone else needs to be working on your chassis. You don't just want to have one Allen wrench that everyone has to share. And also, if you have one Allen wrench, someone will eventually lose it, and then you'll have to borrow one. Not to say you can't borrow it from another team, but you want to try to have, you know, a couple. You don't need to have every student have their own Allen wrench, but make sure you have enough tools to fix your robot. That's why it's pretty good. It's good practice to try to standardize your fasteners on your robot. We typically use socket head cap screws that are either 1032 in bolt size or 832s. And then that makes it where we only have a certain number of wrenches. We don't have it where we have Allen wrenches and Phillips head and flathead and hex head and all these different wrenches, so then we need all these different tools to be able to work on our robot. So try to standardize, try to bring enough to be able to fix your robot. Maybe have a couple extra fasteners, especially nuts. Oh, this year, do not use a standard normal nut or a keeper nut. Only use nylon lock nuts. There's a little circular area of nylon in the nut, and it makes sure that during vibration and shaking and bouncing that your nuts don't come loose and fall off on your robot. If you use normal nuts, they will end up on the field and your robot will eventually fall apart, especially this year than any other year.
Okay, thanks. One recommendation that we have, no problem. I'm sure I put that in the notes. One recommendation that we have for load-in is try your best to have anything you're going to use for your pit be on wheels. It is sometimes a long walk from the door that you have to load everything in at to where the pits are, and you're weaving in between people. Things on wheels are the best. So even if you get like a furniture dolly and you have a tote that you put your toolboxes and stuff in, or if you can get a toolbox that has wheels on it donated to you. Our rookie year, we built a workbench that's on casters that we put all of our stuff in. But I will warn you, some events are only 8 foot deep or 8 foot wide pits. Don't build for a 10-foot pit. If you're going to create a workbench or anything else like that, do not build it 10 by 10. I wouldn't even build it 8 by 8 or an 8 by 8. I'd build it for even a little bit smaller, because you have to figure you're building these. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and make sure that it's no wider than 28 inches to make sure you fit through any of the doorways. There is a chance that you might go to an event that only has a 28-inch wide doorway. If you have this very large workbench or something that's, 48 inches wide, it's not going to get into the building. So be aware about that, even, from your robot standpoint, but also all of your pit stuff that you're bringing in.
So another question was, what kind of stuff should we leave at home? Our team is really infamous for pretty much leaving the floor at home and bringing everything else that we own. But what we usually do is leave it in our trailer. So you will need some kind of a trailer probably to transport all of your stuff to competition. So we bring extra metal, extra plastic, all sorts of miscellaneous things that in case something breaks on our robot or another team's robot, that we have materials to help.
And that material is off-the-shelf items. It's not custom parts. You need to make sure you have an understanding of the difference between the two. So having pieces of aluminum, chunks of aluminum, is okay to have in larger quantities, but if it's custom parts that are designed specifically for your robot, you can only bring in your 30 pounds of withholding.
So does anybody have any questions on the pit area?
We were looking at pictures of the pits online just to kind of get an idea of the banners and stuff like that teams used. It looks, and from what we could see, it looks like most people do have a banner in the pits. Like there's usually a bar that separates the pits so that you can kind of hang something. Is that true?
Well, there's going to be like pipe and drape, like the curtains. You are not allowed to hang anything on that. So what you can do is create your own thing. Most of what you see, you just can't see it. They have like a metal pipe that they have in the back of their pit that they put up that they hang their banner from. So it's up to you what you do. Some teams just show up with their robot and that's all that they have. Some teams print a really super nice banner. Some teams have like a computer or TV monitors that they bring that they scroll their sponsorship information to. How you choose to recognize your sponsors is up to you. You might say that they have to donate a certain number of dollars to become a sponsor or a certain level of recognition in your pit. What you do is up to you, but I will say, generally speaking, teams have some way of recognizing their sponsors. It's good, too, for you to have something like that for when you go to competition. That way other teams start to recognize your image. It's easier to find you based on your team number. And if you have any of your sponsors come to competitions, which, by the way, you should invite all of them to come, if any of them do come, it makes them feel proud and special to see their logo or their name on a banner in your pit. So if you don't have budget to make a banner, I think one year we got one and it was like $75 for us to have it done. Maybe you could even find a banner company in your town to donate it to you if they get to put their logo on it. It's our rookie year, we had one that was like about maybe 6 foot long by 2 foot high that just had our sponsor logos on it and our team logo, and that's all it was. And that was perfectly fine, perfectly fine. Any other questions? Oh, yeah, and by the way, if you're looking at pictures of other teams, some people go crazy decorating their pits. There's this award called the Imagery Award, and there are a lot of teams who take decorating their pits very seriously. The one thing you'll just have to be careful about with that is the amount of time that you spend setting up your pits is time that you could be spending working on your robot. So just take that into consideration when you are considering what to bring into your pit. And the more unnecessary stuff that you put in your pits, the less room you have to work on your robot, the fewer students you can fit in there, therefore probably the fewer people you could have working on the robot, which could be problematic for you. So those are just things that you need to take into consideration. Any other questions about the pit area? No? All right. So we're going to move on to some kind of more team management tasks. We have kind of a lot of that to talk about tonight because a lot of deadlines are coming up. First thing, you should have your team name and your logo solidified at this point. If you don't, then you really need to start coming up with something. Teams will, or people in the FIRST community will know you by your team number, so make sure when you do your logo that your team number is prominent in your logo or can be added around your logo so that people will recognize you. You will be known by your team number. Your team name might be cool and catchy, but people are going to remember you by your team number. So if you don't have that solidified at this point, you really need to move toward doing that. The next thing you need to start thinking about is, depending on when your first competition is, you need to get on ordering your T-shirts, your team uniforms. And so you need to start thinking about things like, are you charging your students? Are you charging your mentors? for their uniforms. Our team collects the team fee at the beginning of the year, and part of that covers each of our students' uniforms. Our team, as a thank you gift to our mentors, we purchase all of our mentors' shirts for them. Then we also put together an order for parents. So if parents want to order a shirt, because at this point, your parents are your biggest fans, right? They're the ones who are bringing the kids, they're the ones who are supporting the kids. So we offer out a thing that says, you know, t-shirts cost however many dollars. Do you want to order one? If so, here's an order form. Fill it out, send it back with your money, and we'll let you order shirts. You also at that point have to make the decision of whether you want your family to wear the same shirts as the team, or if you want to make like a fan shirt. Some teams do this. We did it our rookie year, and we have since abandoned it. Jason, Team Rush still does a fan shirt, right? It's just a different print on the back or something.
We haven't done one in a while. Yeah, so basically it's the same shirt on the front, but on the back it says Fan Club Team 27 rather than all our sponsor names. So the parents can use that same shirt year over year and don't have to buy a different shirt to match the team every year. But we haven't made those in a couple years.
So those are just things you should think about. There's also teams who do different things when they order their shirts. On our team, we get shirt sizes from every single student, and then we order their shirts based on their size. Other teams do it where they're like, oh, we're going to order 30 smalls, 30 mediums, 30 larges, 30 extra larges, and you can pick out of the box whichever is closest to fitting you. I don't like to do that because then you end up with large people in small shirts and small people in really large shirts. On our team, we offer a unisex or men's cut in addition to a female cut. So just speaking as a girl on a robotics team, it's already difficult enough being on a robotics team as like basically the only female mentor for quite a while. Then I have to wear like a boy's t-shirt, and it's hard. So just having clothes that fit me make me feel more comfortable at a competition, so that may be something that you want to take into consideration. So does anyone have any questions about uniforms?
I have a question about when you put your name in Sims, is that really your?
I'm having a really hard time understanding you. I'm only getting about 2 words out of all of what you're saying. If you are at a computer, can you email me the question and I'll read it and try to answer it?
Sure.
Or you can text message it to me. If you're near a phone, you can text message it to me too.
Okay.
All right, while she's doing that, I'm going to start on awards if no one has any other questions about T-shirts. All right. One other thing that our team does is offer sweatshirts. So that's another thing that you might want to consider because it's winter during robotics season and people get cold. So having a sweatshirt's not a bad idea. So, all right, so awards. We are basically going to focus on 3 awards tonight. 2 of them have deadlines. The first award, all right, hold on 1 second. Lucas just came in with a whole gallon of orange juice that I know is going to be spilled on the floor. Clint, can you talk, or Jason, can you talk about the Dean's List Award?
Sure. So the Dean's List Award is an award where the mentors on the team nominate one of the students. So a couple of the components of it are scholarships, so they have to be doing fairly well in school. It's their participation on the first team. We've also found that students that seem to do better or have a better chance at winning the Dean's List Award are involved in other activities outside of just the first team. So we on Team Rush had a national Dean's List winner 2 years ago, and then we had a state Dean's List winner last year. So basically, the essay is written by the mentors, describes the students, their involvement in FRC, their involvement in other activities, and it's sort of like the role model student. So the essay is limited to 4,000 characters and has to be submitted in TIMS in 2 weeks. So basically 2 weeks from today. So it's a nice honor. You can nominate up to two students per team. So it's a nice honor for the students. I know when Cameron, who was on our team, won it 2 years ago, at the national level, there was a large cache of prizes that he received. So he received like a drone, a Surface, an iPad, a trip to New Hampshire to visit Dean Kamen. The other benefit of winning the Dean's List Award, oh, sorry, I forgot to say, they recommend that you nominate a junior, because the other benefit of Dean's List Award is you get a letter from FRC and from Dean that you can put in your college application. And a lot of colleges think very, very highly of Dean's List Award recipients. So again, it's a nice honor for your students if you have some exemplary students in their, sophomore or junior year. You can go ahead and nominate seniors too to win the award, but it doesn't have as much.
Jason, they changed it this year. You can only nominate a sophomore or a junior.
Okay. Well,
you can't even select seniors anymore. Yeah.
Okay.
They started last year they did it like you could nominate a junior or a senior or a sophomore. And now this year they've completely taken seniors out of it. It has to be either a sophomore or a junior.
Okay. And probably for that reason that they want the students to be able to use it for college applications.
Yep. So I've included information in the notes about where to go for the Dean's List Award. And like Jason said, it's due 2 weeks from today on February 11th. And it has to be submitted by either the primary or the secondary contact in TIMS, which is your Team Information Management System. If you do not know what TIMS is, or you are not the TIMS contact, get with the person who is to have, if you are the main mentor for the team and you are not the primary or secondary contact, you need to get with your superintendent or your principal and get you on that so you can apply for this award. So I highly recommend that you guys take the time to do this. One of the stipulations that I found when I was reading the criteria that I thought was different, that I don't know if it has been before, is that you may not, if you are the primary or secondary contact and you are related to the person that is being nominated, the other person has to submit it. So if you're the primary person, say another person is the secondary contact, and you're nominating, say, your son, you have to have the other person submit it. So you cannot submit someone that you are related to, which I think is new for this year. So just keep an eye out for that one. Does anyone have any questions on the Dean's List Award? You will have to know the student's GPA, by the way. Before you can nominate them, you have to know what their GPA is. So make sure you look that up. If you are not the person who can look that up, a lot of times you can get with your counselor's office, and they will help you get the GPA for that. Any other questions on the Dean's List before we move on to Woody Flowers Award? Okay. The Woody Flowers Award is basically the Dean's List Award, but for a mentor. So instead of the mentor is nominating a student, the students are nominating a mentor. So when you, as the primary or secondary contact, log into TIMS, you can select up to 3 students that can be award submitters. It will be one of these 3 students who submits for the Woody Flowers Award. Now, here's the thing. The Woody Flowers Award must clearly have been written and submitted by students. If they look at this in the essay that's submitted and they see this amazingly written, eloquent essay, they're probably going to be a little questionable about whether or not the students wrote that. So this needs to be student created, student submitted. You will also have to have, the students will have to have 2 references for the Woody Flowers Award. So it can be other mentors on your team, mentors from other teams, maybe if you're nominating a teacher at your school, maybe the principal at the school, something like that, that if they have questions about this person that they could contact someone, similar to leaving a reference on a job interview, or for a job interview rather. So I highly recommend that you encourage your students to apply for this award. Now, you don't have to necessarily dictate and be like, you guys need to go and nominate Mr. Smith. Maybe talk, if you have team captains on your team, go to them and say, here's the criteria for the Woody Flowers Award. I recommend that you nominate someone. Any mentor on our team, nominate someone on the team. And how this works is that the district events, the Woody Flowers Award nominees and the Dean's List nominees are recognized during the opening ceremonies. They say, all right, we're going to announce our Woody Flowers nominees, and everyone gets to stand up, and we're going to nominate announce our Dean's List nominees, and everyone gets to stand up. And then at the state level is where the Woody Flowers and the Dean's List winners are chosen. And then those winners move on to the national competition to compete. With the Dean's List Awards, we forgot to mention there's an interview. So at one of your 2 district events, the student who is being nominated for the Dean's List Award will go in for an interview in front of a panel of judges. They will ask questions about them, maybe certain questions like, were you on an FLL team or an FTC team? Or what do you feel is your most valuable contribution to your team? Tell me a little bit about your extracurricular activities, those kind of things. Last year, a mentor was allowed to sit in on the Dean's List interviews, so that was pretty cool. I was the one who got to sit in on that, so it was really cool for me to get to see our students talking about themselves and being proud of their accomplishments and getting a little bit emotional in front of judges about how FIRST has impacted them. So that's just about the Woody Flowers Award and the Dean's List Award. Do you guys have any questions about those 2 things? I know I'm sitting here talking a lot, so if you guys have questions, go ahead. All right, and then Lynn, I got your question. As soon as I'm done with Rookie All-Star, we'll answer your question. All right, so the last award that I want to talk about a little bit is the Rookie All-Star Award. You guys, as rookies, get a special award. It's called the Rookie All-Star Award. And basically what a Rookie All-Star team is, it is quoted as celebrates a rookie team, exemplifying a young but strong partnership effort, as well as implementing the mission of FIRST to inspire students to learn more about science and technology. So basically what they're looking for is a rookie team that doesn't really look like they're rookies. So this is an opportunity for you guys to talk about some of the cool things that you're doing on your team or how you've raised awareness for science and technology in your school. You can put together a handout, you can put together a flyer. So there is a whole description in the awards manual about the Rookie All-Star Award. We've included a couple of the bullets and the section that you can look at in order to learn a little bit more about the Rookie All-Star Award. But the Rookie All-Star Award does qualify you for state. So at the district level, whichever team wins the Rookie All-Star Award will get to go to state. So it's a very valuable award. You can only win it once when you're a rookie. So it's something that out of the 22 districts, 22 rookie teams will win this, and you should try to be one of them. So I highly recommend that you work toward this. There's not an official application process or anything. This is just an opportunity for you to come up with something, and then at the competition in the pit area, there will be judges walking around. And when they come up to you and start talking to you about things like your partnership between your school and sponsors and what your team is trying to accomplish, and asking about your robot, asking you about your leadership, your community activities, your vision, your spirit, all these kind of key words, a little light bulb should pop on and be like, oh, they're here for the Rookie All-Star Award. we should pay attention to these people. So that's just a little information on the Rookie All-Star Award. Does anybody have any questions on the Rookie All-Star Award, the Dean's List Award, or the Woody Flowers Award? No? Okay. I guess I just talk way too much then. Okay. So the next bullet that we have is travel plans for your first event. So just a few things
Randy, what about
you
the
guys need. Yes. So Lynn's question was, when you put your catchy name into Tim's, do you make the change under team nickname or team name? Is it still associated with your school? So first, when you create your account, you create it under your school. So your school is always attached to your name, and your school will always be read. So whatever you want your team to be called when you're on the field, that's what you need to put in there.
It's typically actually it's your last sponsor, I think, is the way they do it. So if you're sponsored by GM and Grand Blanc High School, they would say GM and Grand Blanc High School. It's typically they always put the school at the end of all the other partners or sponsors that you have on the team.
So basically why they want to know this is before each match, while they're waiting for the robots to connect to the field, the teams line up behind the glass in front of where they're going to drive their robot, and there's an announcer, and he runs around all energetic-like and waves team flags. So if you bring a flag, he'll wave your flag, and they're like, on the Red Alliance, we have Team 27, Team Rush, sponsored by blah, 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 and Clarkston High School. We have Team 2337, the Engineers, sponsored by GM, Premier Tooling Systems, blah, 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 and Grand Blanc High School. We have Team 33, the Killer Bees from Notre Dame Prep. So they'll read your nickname, all your sponsors, and your school name automatically. So whatever you want your team to be called, put that in nickname. If you want them to call you something, if your team name is really, really obscurely spelled, like for example, Team 1684 in Lapeer are the Chimeras. They're two schools that merge together to have one team. So their logo is two animals mushed together, a chimera, and for the longest time they were called the Chimras because that's how it looks like it's spelled. So if you're going to give your team name something that's really hard to pronounce, you need to think about that before you put it in. So, or before you decide to spell it really obscurely, think about those things. So your team nickname is what you're going to be called when you're on the field. So you don't have to put your school name in your team name, so you don't have to be like the Grand Blanc Engineers. You can just write the Engineers or whatever your team name is in there. So does that answer your question, Lynn?
Yes, do.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, awesome. So the next thing is travel plans for your first event. Some of you guys may be competing in week 1. Some of you guys might not start till week 5. So some of this will be more applicable to you than others, but this is all stuff that all of you guys need to start looking into. First thing is, do you need hotels? Our general rule of thumb for hotels is if we have to drive more than 1 hour each direction, we get a hotel. It is worth it to us. I mean, now that gas is like under $2 a gallon, it might be a little bit different, but back in the day when we were traveling and gas was almost $4 a gallon, it was cheaper for us to get a hotel than it was to drive back and forth. The things that you want to take into consideration is if you're driving really far, the quality of sleep that these students are going to get. You may be at the event until 9 o'clock in the morning and then have to be back there at 7 or 7:30 the next morning. So you might be looking at getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep, which is not really very safe when students are doing things like working on power tools while exhausted. So think about these things. On our team, we, like I said, we collect a team fee at the beginning of the year, and some of it pays for the uniforms, some of it pays for hotels. So that may be something that you guys want to take into consideration, is getting a hotel room and then just being like, hey, everybody pitch in $25 and we're going to pay for the hotel. So hotels, look into that. Second, how are you going to get there? Do you need parents to drive? Are you going to charter a bus? Are you going to use your school bus? How are you getting there? Start looking into that. Third, do you need food? This is your opportunity. Every single first event that you travel to will have concessions, and nearly all of them, if not all of them, will have a pre-order meal option. For rookie teams, pre-order meals is a great thing to do. Basically what they do is they send you a certain list of items ahead of time, like pizza, hot dogs, sandwiches, etc. And you can ask your team, what all do you want, or take individual orders or set a spending limit, let them order their spending limit. And then you submit your pre-order form by the date listed on the form, and when you get to the event, your food is there and ready for you. It's already sorted out, counted, everything. You walk up, you pay for it, you're good. So that is one option for you. A second option is having your parents supply meals. This is what we do, and this is what Team Rush does. You have parents sign up to bring a meal, and they bring it, and you don't have to worry about it. You as a coach, especially if you are excuse me, the coach that's in charge of all of the students or the coach that's in charge of the robot, you need to be focusing your time and effort on the students and the robot, not worrying about where lunch is and if it's ready and if children have food. So assign someone to provide and set up, order, make sure it's done, meals. Don't be the one to do that. Delegate it. The next thing is permission slips. What is your school's policy on getting permission slips, GPAs, all the stuff that the school requires, and will you need board approval to go to this? It would be so sad if you guys missed your first event because you did not have all of the right paperwork in. Does anyone have any questions about travel plans for your first event? No? All right, if you do, let us know. All right, that brings us pretty much to the end of the things that we have on our agenda. Does anyone else that's on the line have any other questions about anything?
Yeah, I have a question about our rolling intake that we're beginning to design. You had mentioned that in the starting configuration, it can't be outside the frame perimeter. How is there any? I thought you said it couldn't be more than 3 inches outside the frame perimeter, or can it not be outside the frame perimeter at all?
At the start of the match, you have to make sure that every bit of your robot is contained within your frame perimeter at the start of the match. So they actually won't start the match if you say you have an arm and it's sticking outside of the frame perimeter. They'll make you fix that or adjust it or make sure it's in to start the match. Once the match starts, you can then go up to 15 inches outside of your frame perimeter. But at the start of the match, you have to be within it. Think of it as a volume. So you take your frame perimeter, and it's an infinite plane and volume, and you have to have everything within that until the match starts. Nothing saying you can't have spring-loaded things so that once you start, you pull a pin and then it spring loads out and stays out the rest of the match. That's okay, but you need to start within the frame perimeter.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Well, if you guys think of anything throughout the week, feel free to send us an email. We'll be working on the notes for you guys today and tomorrow. Hopefully be able to send them out to you guys tomorrow with all of the links and everything that we have included for you. So if you think of anything, send us an email. Otherwise, keep working on those robots. And if you guys have any problems, let us know. We are here to help. Please do not suffer in silence. Please let us know so that we can help you. And other than that, we'll be here same time, same place next week. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.